Welcome to the Bible Forum. I'm Warren Sprouse. It's the last Sunday in June 2019. Did you watch the debates this past week? I have a website. It's called The View from Zoar. Abraham's nephew Lot got to stand there in Zoar and look out across at God destroying the 5 cities of the plain, Sodom, Gomorrah, and the other 3, with fire raining down from heaven. I have likened the debates this week to some of that idea. The Democrat candidates spent 2 evenings trying to out-liberal one another. Much of their so-called new plans consist of spending huge amounts of taxpayer money to satisfy their own political goals. At the Democrat debate, polls show that Senators Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren, Cory Booker, and former Secretary of Housing and Urban Development Julian Castro caught fire as the winners of the debate, gaining favorability with their performance. And debates are performances, no matter who's doing them. Now, these 5 are not the least qualified, but they're very close to it. And their policy suggestions are anything but American. That is, if you're talking about our Constitution, of which the Declaration of Independence is the preamble, and the Bill of Rights. Did you know the migrants suffering at the Mexican border are doing so in large part because of the resistance of a Democrat-dominated House of Representatives that has for 2 years refused to allow money already allocated to border issues to be spent. For the last 2 years, they have stood in the way of this money going to the border for fear Trump will use it to stop illegals from getting into this country. Now, that we have laws designed to do just that doesn't seem to matter. They blame President Trump for the mass migration that is occurring, maintaining that this crisis is the result of his anti-immigration policies. So they're withholding money because they don't trust the president with emergency funds. They're afraid he will simply use those on deportation efforts. Then they complain that children are going without showers or clean clothes, that 8-year-olds are caring for infants they don't know while toddlers go without diapers. And this is all President Trump's fault. This crisis has been aggravated by the anti-immigration policies of this president, Representative Jose Serrano said, despite the fact that it all started before President Trump did one single thing. His presence in the White House is what stimulated this migration. It was not stimulated by Central Americans. It was stimulated by Trump-hating, American-hating interest groups. What else would have motivated these people to leave everything and endanger themselves and their children on a 1,000-mile walk through some of the most dangerous country in Central America? And if you believe it was spontaneous, then you still believe in the Sandman. Somebody promised these people something, and then they paid for it. Homeland Security officials say the nation's broad asylum laws are attracting the massive surge of migrants to journey from Central America to the U.S. border, where they are often released into the country. Did I miss something? Are our asylum laws new? Are these the laws that Trump's Congress passed, or they've been on the books for years? The asylum laws are not new, but the march is. Democrats said they have no plans to negotiate changes to the asylum laws. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy from California called the measure misguided and purely political. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer from New York said Senate Democrats, quote, prefer the House bill to the Senate bill. But Schumer said he will vote for the Senate measure. That's probably going to happen this week. He said then quickly have some kind of negotiation with the House to get something to the president's desk ASAP. He went on to say we all believe we have to get some aid to these poor children. It's getting embarrassing. And it's absolutely amazing that sentient creatures actually believe all of this. These people at the border have been in desperate situations for generations. Central America is not the bastion of economic progress. Why now? Why this? Tens of thousands of people just don't get up one morning and decide to walk thousands of miles for nothing. Somebody promised them something, and it wasn't Trump. And it wasn't the Republicans. Did you know the front runners in the Democrat race are polling at less than 30%? Some of that's due to the number of people in the race. But the combined numbers still represent a small percentage of voters. 11 of the 20 Democrats running for president account for 18% of the vote in the polls, while 6 of these people poll at less than 2%. Combined, the total combined, all 6, are 2%. That's 18 out of the 20 represent 20%. Only 3 are in double digits, and they're in small numbers. 2 of them are less than 20%. Only Biden is in the 30 percentile category. That lead is slipping every day. 41.5% of likely Democrat voters said they supported Biden's campaign before the debate. Today, only 31.5%. The huge number of candidates allows for some of this, but the picture here is a party striving to capture the young adult progressive vote, a demographic they've worked hard at creating over the last 80 years. Ever since they changed the way we educate children in the 1930s, ever since they threw out Bible-based educational formulas in favor of Deweyism, ever since they threw the Bible out of the classroom, ever since they saw the value of television and later the internet to cultivate a mindset, ever since they waged war on marriage and later on gender, calling all of this progressivism. But it worked. Now the over 50 crowd of politicians are seeing themselves muscled out of the room. The lower tier of candidates will meld into the fabric before next summer, but they won't go away. I predict the women will win out, probably Kamala Harris or Elizabeth Warren. The men are either too old or they're just not viable. And in an emotional debate, men tend to lose. They have too much logic. For example, Kamala Harris told a story of being a child of color, bused to school under our federal busing rules. The fact checkers tell us that was a lie. They're telling us she was in grammar school in the 1970s when minority groups were complaining about busing, and that she never lived in a poor ethnic community. I think her father was a professor at a university, a prestigious position. and that she was a child of privilege. She just happened to be alive when all this was going on. It made good copy, but it didn't immediately increase her standing all that dramatically. She saw a 9-point increase in support from Democrat voters. She was at 7.9 before the debate. She was at 16.9 after the debate. Not an overwhelming approval. The other women don't have the machine to stay in the race for very long, and many of these candidates are just too liberal or too wild. Illustrative is Democratic presidential candidate Beto O'Rourke. During a recent visit to an immigrant detention facility in Homestead, Florida, he said that migrants are forced to seek asylum because of climate change that was caused by U.S. excesses. The man is off his meds. The liberals in this country have convinced a large percentage of people, largely young people, that America is the problem. That's why everybody's trying to get here. That religion and Christian values just don't work. They're too restrictive. No, they keep you alive and healthy. That America needs to take care of its own first. Which means what? Free lunches for everybody. Let everybody come in from wherever they're coming from. We can take care of them as long as our credit holds out. We have a president that's spending money like a drunken sailor. I fully expect that when he gets reelected, he'll do something to put a curb to that, because he promised he would do it. He hasn't done it yet. And he's a businessman, so he knows how this is working. We are in debt up to our eyeballs. Of course, the stock market bounded this past week to a higher margin than it's been since the 1930s. Health insurance and free lunches seem to be the main target. Americans just can't afford either one. And the reason is the system is tilted against them by big business and millionaires. I just had heart bypass surgery. They replaced 4 whatever. A very expensive procedure. Now I'm old, I have Medicare. Medicare pays for about 80%. Before that I had private insurance, which wasn't insurance at all. It was Christian people pooling their money to help one another. And the maximum amount of premium that you would pay for this program was $150 a month per family member. A maximum of 3 family members. The limit was $125,000 per incident. However, if your bills exceeded the policy limit, this organization has what they call the Brothers Keeper program. Here you pay another monthly amount. I happen to pay $45. This kicks in after the first $5,000 of bills and will give you another $100,000 of benefit. I have already gotten bills that total more than $50,000 for this thing, and I haven't heard from the surgeon yet. I expect that before this is done, my bill will be close to $200,000. After all that I have access to as far as benefit, there is another program with this company that I use where members simply sign up saying they will help share your bills. So if you don't have if your insurance is, you don't have enough insurance to cover whatever, you have a secondary program that'll cover another $125, and if it exceeds that, This program will kick in where other people will send you money. And I know it works because I donate toward it. They do this every month. This is a program far better than anything the government is suggesting they'll do for you. And with government, the rates will always continue to go up. It's called supply and demand. Now, this is a program available largely to Christians. Christians who do not drink, do not smoke, do not engage in homosexual behavior, do not have unhealthy habits, and tend to be more responsible than the average person. The liberals among us want the government to pay for all of it. I'm telling you, I have a program that illustrates that's not necessary. Our politicians are largely working in a dark room. All they can see is what's in front of them. And what's in front of them is the bureaucracy. It's what we've always done. Oh, and their job security, pension and perks. But life happens in the trenches. And these people you saw on that stage won't be anywhere near those trenches when you need them. And if one of them is, then the system will work against that person every time. Candidates for public office generally promise the moon, but their track record is simply the increase in bureaucratic chaos. The system is so overblown it doesn't work anymore, if it ever did. Social Security was designed in such a way that it did not apply to the average person. In the 1940s, 50, whatever it was, when Social Security came in, you didn't qualify until you were 65 years old. The average lifespan of a male was less than that. What's that tell you about politicians? To their justification or to their praise, they lowered that to 62. But you get a decreased amount if you take it early. And the average age of a working man now is up in the 70s. And so it's working, but it wasn't designed to. Bureaucrats. Trust them at your own expense.